Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us. This is outstanding. Thanks, Deepak, for that beautiful presentation as an introduction to what we are going to learn today. Well, I'm excited and encouraged with the magnificent turnout. We'll hear things today that truly is going to change your life. For almost 40 years, Dr. Dean Ornish has directed clinical research demonstrating that a comprehensive lifestyle change can begin to reverse coronary artery disease. He also directed the first randomized control trial demonstrating that comprehensive lifestyle change may slow, stop, or even reverse progression of early prostate cancer. His research shows that these lifestyle changes affect gene expression, turning on disease-preventing genes, and turning off genes that promote cancer and heart disease. Dr. Ornish earned his BA degree from University of Texas and his MD degree from the Baylor College of Medicine, and subsequently was a clinical fellow in internal medicine at the Massachusetts General Hospital. Dr. Ornish has authored 6 books and all national bestsellers. His newest book is upcoming in January or early February of the coming year. His TED Talks has been reviewed by almost 5 million people around the globe. Based off Dr. Ornish's research, Medicare created the new benefit category to provide coverage for this lifestyle change program, making this the first time Medicare has approved a program incorporating comprehensive lifestyle change. Thank you. Several years ago, I was brainstorming with our Director of Cardiology Service, Chris Manes. Chris, are you here in the audience? Okay, good. He's a good mentor to have. We are talking about the ways to help our cardiac patients beyond just treating their symptoms, and on an unfortunate account like what you see this young gentleman. This is the first presentation of their heart disease. They even did not know such a life-threatening event could be their first presentation. He survived, probably recovered 90% by the good work of like Dr. Talresia and many of our colleagues in this community. We do that day and night, weekends, 365 days a year. But is there a solution, or all the time we should be dealing with these critical events? What we learned today, it's no question, it's already understood. Yes, we can able to reverse. We can able to prevent these life-threatening diseases. So after this brainstorming event, Chris and myself, we are pretty much familiar with the work of Dr. Dean Ornish, his publications. We took a field trip to see a site that is already running the Dean Ornish program of reversing heart disease. And we are beyond impressed with the progress we saw and the stories we heard from those participants. The next step for both of us was how to present this information cordially to our Sentara medical group and the administration, and fortunately they listened to us, what we have to say, and they backed the program. So we are fortunate to start the Ornish Lifestyle Medicine Program at the Sentara Princess Anne Hospital in 2016. And we are continually amazed by the changes we see as people begin to alter their lifestyle. On that note, it is a privilege and a great honor to introduce to you the man who, through many years of research and commitment, pioneered the Ornish Lifestyle Medicine Program, and that is now part of the cardiac rehab program at the Sentara Princess Anne Hospital. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure and honor to introduce you Dr. Dean Ornish. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I want to thank Dr. Kelly for his kind introduction to all of our remarks, and also to Karen in the healthcare system for having me here today. I'm really grateful. I thought it might be useful to start in the most recent quarter at Sentara. Okay, so there's an average weight loss, which is about a 10 corresponding reduction. In the LDL cholesterol fell from being very low to begin with. It's about 5% additional drop on with and it's actually even better than that because many of them they're able to reduce or get off of their medications to lower their cholesterol and blood pressure and blood sugar. And you know, when we and I'll talk more about that, the triglycerides showed a 7.5% decrease, blood pressure showed a 7% decrease again, even though many people are reducing or getting off of these medications. Hemoglobin A1C, a measure of blood sugar, showed a 7% reduction. Depression scores showed even greater than 50% reduction. We're seeing this at all of our sites. And this is actually better than you get with SSRI drugs like Prozac and Zoloft. And of course, here the only side effects are good ones. And depression is epidemic in this culture, as I'll talk about later. And exercise ability increased by almost 44%. So you guys are doing great. So if I can have the next slide, which is about the transformative power of lifestyle medicine. Lifestyle medicine, to me, is the most exciting trend in medicine today. It's using lifestyle changes not only to help prevent disease, as we all know, but to actually treat it and often even to reverse it. Our program, which we have been studying now for over 4 decades, for 40 years, has 4 components. It's a whole foods plant-based diet, naturally low both in fat and in sugar, including refined carbs. Various stress management techniques, including meditation and yoga exercises. Moderate exercise, like walking half an hour a day, and psychosocial support, where to reduce it even further, to eat well, move more, stress less, love more. Boom, that's it. And the more diseases we study, and the more underlying mechanisms we look at, the more reasons we have to explain why these simple changes are so powerful, and how quickly people can get better. And it's worth mentioning that with all this talk about personalized medicine, it wasn't like we had one set of diet and lifestyle changes for reversing heart disease, a different one for reversing prostate cancer, or diabetes, or high blood pressure, or cholesterol. It's really the same for all of these. And I have a new book that I co-wrote with my wife Anne that will be coming out in January by Random House called Undo It. And it's based on the idea that it's putting forth this new unified theory that although we tend to think of heart disease as being a very different disease than diabetes or prostate cancer or Alzheimer's, that they're really just different manifestations of the same underlying biological mechanisms, things like chronic inflammation, chronic sympathetic nervous system overstimulation, changes in the microbiome, oxidative stress, apoptosis, which is programmed cell death, angiogenesis, gene expression, telomeres, immune function. And each of those, in turn, is directly influenced by what we eat, how we respond to stress, how much exercise we get, and how much love and support we get. This is the new book. It's about how simple lifestyle changes can reverse most chronic diseases, including the non-limited to heart disease. Our diet is rated #1 for heart health every year since 2011 by a panel of experts from U.S. News and World Report, which is a nice validation. And as Dr. Connie mentioned, the underlying theme of all of our work, the guiding principle, is this very simple question: what is the cause? And you know, I've been showing this slide for literally decades, but now as it was 40 years ago, we spent so much time in medicine mopping up the floor without also turning off the faucet. And sometimes you do need to mop up the floor. Drugs and surgery can be life-saving in crisis. We've all benefited from that. But if you don't treat the cause, then, for example, when people get put on medications to lower their cholesterol or their blood pressure or their blood sugar, and they say, "Doctor, how long do I have to take these?" The doctor usually says, "Forever." It's like, how long do I have to mop up the floor? Well, forever. Like, why don't we turn off the faucet? And the faucet, to a much larger degree, are the lifestyle choices that we make each day. And what we're learning, and I'm continually amazed by our bodies often have this remarkable capacity to begin healing, and much more quickly than we had once realized, if we can treat the underlying cause. So I started doing these studies back in 1977, 78, over 40 years ago. The first study, this one, we took 10 men and women, put them in a hotel for a month, and they got better. 8 of the 10 people showed significant reduction in angina. By the way, I forgot to mention there was a 40% reduction in angina in the Sentara patients as well. And that's incredibly motivating. We'll talk more about that. For someone who can't walk across the street without getting chest pain, or make love with their spouse, or play with their kids, or go back to work without getting pain, and within a few weeks they're essentially pain-free, or much less pain. It really transforms the reason for making these changes from fear of dying, which is not sustainable, to joy and pleasure, love, and feeling of the charge we'll talk more about. So in this study, we looked at volume scans to measure blood flow. You can see on the left, the baseline, there's a dark area around 10 o'clock. This is a picture of the heart. A month later, you can see it's essentially normal. And 8 of the 10 patients showed that. Went to, then did a second randomized trial now, and we found the same things. That in the yellow, the experimental group of babies' lifestyle changes got better in the ability of their heart to pump blood. The control group showed the green got worse. The differences were highly significant. And we published that in the Journal of the American Medical Association. And in both studies, we found there was a greater than 91% reduction in the frequency of angina after a month. Went to Boston to do my medical residency and fellowship, moved to San Francisco, began the most definitive study called a lifestyle heart trial. And this was men and women who have heart disease, and we looked at quantitative arteriography to measure the blockages in their arteries, and cardiac PET scans to measure the blood flow in the heart. And these were all blindly read by independent observers, and you can see that in the randomized control group, the arteries got more clogged after 1 year, showing the red line, and even more clogged after 5 years. This is what usually happens to people with heart disease, and they tend to get worse and worse over time. But we found they could actually get better and better. They showed some reversal in the green line after 1 year. The arteries became less clogged, and even more reversal after 5 years than after 1 year. And we found a 40% reduction in cholesterol levels. Now, you couldn't even do this study today because none of the patients in the experimental group was taking cholesterol levels. So we can see the effects of lifestyle changes alone without being confounded by that. We also found, using cardiac PET scans, a 400% improvement in blood flow in the heart after 5 years. And this is a representative patient. You can see on the left there where the arrow is. The arteries, this is one of the main arteries in the heart. It's narrow because it's clogged. On the right, you can see it's less clogged. And because blood flow is a fourth power function of the radius of the artery, on the lower left at the beginning, this is the PET scan, blue and black, at baseline, very little blood flow. A year later, orange and white is maximal blood flow, as you can see. And this is not best case, this is really representative. It's evidenced by the fact that 99% of the patients were able to stop or reverse their heart disease as measured by PET scan, whereas only 5% of the control group patients got better. And one of the interesting findings was that I had predicted incorrectly, as it turns out, that the younger people who had less severe disease would be better. But it really wasn't a function of how old or how sick they were. It was simply a function, the more they changed, the more the improvement would measure, both 1 year and 5 years. At any age, which is a very empowering message to give patients, that as long as you're able to make these changes, you're likely to benefit to the degree that you make them. And we had 2.5 times as many cardiac events, heart attacks, strokes, bypasses, angioplasties, and stents in the control group as in the experimental group. Now, if you could show this 1-minute video, this is a patient who went through our program at UCLA, who's a physician and internist himself, who was told he had such a massive heart attack, his ejection fraction was down to 11 to 15%, normal is 50%. He was told that the only thing that he could do was to have a heart transplant. And while waiting for a donor, he went through our program, and he improved so much in 9 weeks, his ejection fraction improved from 11 to 15% all the way up to 30%, it's 35% now. He went from being able to not being able to walk a few steps, he couldn't work, he couldn't do much of anything. And now that he's normal life, he's back to work full time. So if you could run that 1-minute video, that would be great.
So the situation I'm describing here is of an internal medicine doctor who started a new chapter in his life with his wife, moving to Lake Arrowhead, having just opened a private practice office after all of our kids went to college and we could relocate. And just as this was ramping up, we had a horrible car accident which precipitated a heart attack that dropped my cardiac functioning down to basically 11 to 13 or 14, 15% of what it should have been, which resulted in intractable chest pain, angina, trouble breathing, inability to walk from room to room, go upstairs without being carried. I was offered a heart transplant as the only way to stay alive. And at the 11th hour, I entered the Ornish program, which provided me with an entire paradigm shift with respect to stress management, exercise, diet, nutrition, and despite not believing it myself and having other physicians who didn't believe in it either, it worked beyond my wildest dreams. I'm now able to exercise moderately, I can work full-time, I can live at 6,000 feet, and our quality of life is actually better than it was before.
I'll even let him take my lipstick off.
Can you believe this is my wife?
So then we began studying prostate cancer to see whether these same lifestyle changes could do that. And we did that in collaboration with the chair of urology at Sloan Kettering in New York and also the chair at UCSF. I'm a professor. It's always good when you're doing disruptive studies to work with the leaders in the field. And we took measurement biopsy for prostate cancer. We decided to do watchful waiting for reasons unrelated to the study. And that way we could have a true non-intervention control group and randomize these patients. What we found is that PSA levels increased or got worse in the randomized control group, whereas they went down or got better in the group that made these lifestyle changes. And these improvements occurred in direct proportion to the degree of lifestyle change. The more they changed, the lower their PSA went. We found a tumor growth when we added their serum to a standard line of prostate tumor cells growing in tissue culture. The tumor group was inhibited 70% in the experimental group and only 9% in the control group. Also, in direct proportion to the degree of lifestyle change. The more they changed their lifestyle, the more it kept the tumor from growing. And we did MR spectroscopy to actually measure the tumor activity in a subset of these patients. And we found that the tumor activity was shrinking, as you can see here, as well as the PSA coming down. And none of the experimental group patients needed surgery or radiation, whereas 6 of the control group patients did during the first year. So we wondered what some of the mechanisms might be to help explain that. And so we looked at their gene expression. And we published this with Craig Venter, who first decoded the human genome. And we found that over 500 genes were changed in just 3 months. Isn't that amazing? I mean, you can actually change your genes, turning on the genes that keep us healthy, turning off the genes that cause us to get sick, turning off the genes that cause the same mechanisms, chronic inflammation, oxidative stress, and particularly downregulating and turning off what are called oncogenes, promote prostate, breast, and colon cancer, were turned off. And you can see here, this is what's called heat map. On the right side, in that column are all different genes that cause cancer. At the beginning on the left, red is turned on, these cancer-causing genes were turned on. On the right, you can see green is turned off just 3 months later. Again, how powerful these simple changes are. We often think it has to be a new drug and lasers, something really high-tech and expensive to be powerful. And what we've been able to show, I think our unique contribution has been to use these very high-tech, expensive, state-of-the-art scientific measures to prove how powerful these very simple and low-cost interventions can be. So often people think it has to be a new drug or something really high-tech, and we can show people that the simple changes can be so powerful. So our genes are our predisposition, but our genes are not our fate. You know, I'm sure you had patients say, oh, I just have bad genes, what can I do? Well, you can do a lot. Again, not to blame people, but to empower them. And Melody Fuster published a paper in the New England Journal saying as much. We then did a study with Dr. Elizabeth Blackburn, who got the Nobel Prize for her pioneering work on telomeres. And telomeres are into our chromosomes that control how long we live. They're like the plastic tips on the inside of the shoelace to keep the shoelace from unraveling. They keep our DNA from unraveling. And you can see here the enzyme that repairs and lengthens telomeres we found increased by almost a third in just 3 months. And over a 5-year period, we found that we could actually lengthen or grow the telomeres longer. And when the Lancet published this, they sent a press release out worldwide that called it reversing aging at a cellular level, whereas the control group actually got shorter telomeres, which is what usually happens. And here again, we found that the more people change their lifestyle, the more closely they follow that program, the longer their telomeres got. We then wondered if these same lifestyle changes could reverse type 2 diabetes. And type 2 diabetes is really a pandemic, not only in the United States, but around the world. And in our country, over half of Americans today are diabetic or pre-diabetic. So it's a huge problem. And it's now costing over $320 billion a year just in the United States alone. Now, it turns out that lifestyle changes are actually better than drugs at preventing type 2 diabetes. This is what's a landmark study called the Diabetes Prevention Program. And they found that lifestyle changes were better than drugs, metformin, better than placebo at preventing diabetes. And in the EPIC study of 23,000 people, they found that just walking a half an hour a day, not smoking, eating a reasonably healthy diet, and keeping a healthy weight prevented 93% of type 2 diabetes. And that's staggering. Think about it. On the one hand, half of Americans today are diabetic and pre-diabetic. On the other, at least 93% of that is preventable today if you simply put these ideas into practice. And I think it's probably closer to 99%. Now, lifestyle change is actually better than drugs in treating type 2 diabetes. This is from Neil Barnard's work. He found that a plant-based diet could increase sensitivity of insulin receptors, in a sense reversing diabetes after just 16 weeks. And we find that over and over again in our studies as well, as evidenced by the fact that hemoglobin A1C went down in these patients at Sentara to such a significant degree. Now, the complications of diabetes are really awful. Any one of them should be awful, but in aggregate, it's really awful. And yet, according to the American Diabetes Association, if you can get your hemoglobin A1C, which is kind of your average blood sugar for the last couple of months, down below 7 with lifestyle, you can prevent all these complications, but not necessarily through doing drugs. And that's just what we found in a demonstration here, which we did with high-mark glucose Blue Shield, that got their hemoglobin A1Cs from above 7 to below 7 after 12 weeks, and remained below that way after a year, just as it did in Sentara. Now, a lot of doctors think, well, I can get my patients to take their drugs, they'll take their Lipitor. There's no way they're going to change their lifestyle. And yet, if you have to take an evidence-based approach, what the data show is that most people are not taking their cholesterol-lowering drugs. This is from the pharma company's own data. Half to two-thirds are not taking them after just 4 to 6 months, and they're of proven value in people with heart disease. And why is that? And the reason, and we'll talk more about this later, is that the drugs don't make you feel better. They're fear-based. It's like, take this pill. The doctor usually says to the patient, it's not going to make you feel better, hopefully it won't make you feel worse, prevent something really bad like a heart attack or stroke from happening years down the road that you don't want to think about. So people do it for a month or so, and they stop thinking about it and they stop taking the drug. About 20% of prescriptions for statin do not even fill. And yet what we're finding is that our program, which is 9 weeks long, a year later, 85 to 90% of people are still following it. Now, how can that be? Well, again, the lifestyle changes don't make you feel better. I mean, the drugs don't make you feel better, but the lifestyle changes do. And there's no point in getting up something that you enjoy unless you get something back that's better quickly. And because these underlying biological mechanisms are so dynamic, most people feel so much better so quickly, it reframes the reason for making these changes from fear of dying, which is not sustainable, to joy and pleasure and love and feeling that which are. And to show how dynamic they are, this is a guy in the LA Police Department who went through our program at UCLA. And you can see on the left this 50% blockage where the arrow is. 9 weeks later was essentially normal after going through our program. And I spoke to his interventional cardiologist who said that this wasn't spasm, it wasn't a thrombus that we catalyzed. It was a soft plaque that regressed during that time. So again, even though we tend to think these blockages take decades to build up, which they often do, we can show improvement in just a few weeks. Now, there are implications beyond just the individual patients. 86% of this $3.6 trillion we spent last year just in the United States on healthcare, which is really mostly sick care, are for chronic diseases that can often be prevented or even reversed by making lifestyle changes. And it turns out that 5% of the population accounts for 50 to 80% of all healthcare costs. And heart disease is number one among them. And so by focusing on the people who account for the greatest amount of costs, we can show the greatest cost reductions within the first year. Now, a meta-analysis of stents showed that in stable patients, they don't really work that well. They don't prevent heart attacks, they don't prevent sudden cardiac death, and they don't reduce angina. And in people who are in the middle of a heart attack, they can be life-saving, but most stents in the past were done on stable patients. And in our more recent study, the Ornish study, showed that even sham stents reduce angina, so that the reduction in angina after stents is largely a placebo effect. We find the same data in prostate cancer. There have been 2 10-year studies, randomized trials in the New England Journal of Medicine looking at treatment of early-stage prostate cancer. And they found that men did nothing with as long as those who had surgery or radiation, even though those treatments often cause impotence or incontinence or both. And yet, if a diagnosis has got a prostate tumor growing, even though half the guys in their 50s and 80% of guys in their 80s have prostate cancer, we're more likely to die with it than from it. And yet, once a guy has a biopsy and knows he's got a tumor, we're like, get it out of here, we've got a nutrient, got to get rid of it. And yet, treatments don't necessarily make you live long. But if the choice is between doing nothing and doing something, most guys want to do something. So now we give people a third alternative, which is to change lifestyle, because we've shown these same lifestyle changes, as I mentioned earlier, can slow, stop, reverse progression of early stage prostate cancer. We've done 3 demonstration projects. The first we did with Mutual Omaha. We found that most people who were told they needed to have revascularization, a bypass or a stent, were able to safely avoid it by changing lifestyle. And it saved almost $30,000 per patient in the first year. And as we move more towards shared risk, shared benefit, value based on volume based, these savings will accrue to the Sentara health system rather than to someone else. We did a second demonstration project with Unmarked Cross Blue Shield, and we found that overall healthcare costs were the same at the beginning, and after 1 year they were 50% lower. And these cost savings continued over a 3-year period. And when we looked at the subset of people who they spent at least $25,000 on in the preceding year, they found they saved 400% on those patients in the year that followed. So it's not about doing something today that may take years to show the cost savings. When you work with the people who are sick, you can show cost savings in the first year. We did a demonstration project of almost 4,000 men and women in West Virginia, Nebraska, and Pennsylvania. Again, we found the same kind of data that we found in Sentara, an average weight loss of 19 pounds, significantly reduced angina. Most people showed significant improvement in angina, just like we found in Sentara. The ability to exercise increased, just like we found a 43%, 44% increase at Sentara. Quality of life improved substantially in these patients. Systolic blood pressure showed significant reductions, diastolic as well, even though, again, we're reducing or getting people off of these medications they thought they'd have to take forever. Same thing with hemoglobin A1C and blood sugars. And depression scores, again, were cut almost 50%, just like in Sentara, with over 53%. And that's important because depression is really epidemic as well. Leading prescription drugs are not just statins, they're also antidepressants. And it's very hard to get people to change their lifestyle when they're depressed. And telling somebody who's lonely and depressed that they're going to live longer if they just change their diet or lifestyle or take their medications or whatever doesn't work that well. Because they say, hey, we're just trying to get through the day, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. After 16 years of review, Medicare created a new benefit category to cover our program called intensive cardiac rehabilitation. This was a real game changer because now it makes it financially sustainable for hospitals and doctors to provide our program. The eligibility criteria on any one of these would make your patients eligible. For example, just having angina. If you can document a chart of angina and heart disease, they're eligible. Anyone's who had an acute MI, prior heart failure, prior bypass, prior angioplasty or stent, prior heart valve, heart lung transplant. Many of the other commercial companies are also covering our program. Aetna's covering in all 50 states and so on. The cartoon says that an operator, you can go on a strict diet, and the patient says, we better operate, my insurance doesn't cover a strict diet. And that's been the problem in the past, is that if it's not reimbursable, it's not sustainable. Now it is. And our approach is to work with a team of people. So instead of having a 10-minute office visit, which is really hard to do much of anything, except maybe go through the problem list and the PMRI and listen to the heart rhythm and write a prescription. It's not really fun for the doctor or patient to practice medicine this way. In our new model that we're doing, the doctor takes a leverage his or her time with the patients. And it's 72 hours of training, not just 10 minutes. But the doctor isn't really spending much of his or her time. Most of that is done by the nurse, the stress management teacher, the exercise physiologist, the dietitian, and the psychologist. Patients come twice a week for 4 hours at a time as opposed to 10 minutes. They get an hour of supervised exercise, just like you find in a traditional cardiac rehab program. But in addition, what you don't find in traditional cardiac rehab, you get an hour of stress management, an hour of support group, which is why you're getting such high levels of adherence, and an hour of lecture with a group meal. And here again, it's reimbursable, it's sustainable. And if you're interested in learning more about the studies that I've been citing here, most of these are on our website. Everything on there is free. But also it allows us to kind of reframe our role as healers and not just as technicians. Most doctors, if you say, when they were surveyed, said that they wouldn't recommend medicine as a career for their kids. It's not fun to practice medicine if you can't really have time to talk about what really matters in people's lives, what's going on in their marriage, with their kids, with their school, with their work. And now we do. And so, if we're just a cluster of algorithms, we're going to get replaced by an iPhone app and artificial intelligence before long. But we're not. That's an important. The science is important. But the art of medicine, the humanistic part of medicine is also important. And when we can show that we can really support and love our patients in this way, then we find that people are much more likely to make and maintain lifestyle choices that are life-enhancing than ones that are self-destructive. And we can help them use the experience of suffering as a doorway for transforming their lives in ways that are so meaningful that I've even had patients say to me things like, and I know with Sentara, we recently had that as well, you know, having a heart attack was the best thing that ever happened. The first time I heard that, I said, what are you nuts? They say, no, that's what it took to get my attention to begin making these changes that have so improved the quality of my life that you know, I would never have gotten interested in doing these before. So I just want to thank you for, you know, transforming my life and my suffering in ways that made it so much more joyful and meaningful, and helping me learn how to quiet down my mind and body to experience more of an inner sense of peace and joy and well-being, and how to connect more deeply with the people that matter most to me. And that's what gets me out of bed every day after doing this for 40 years. I just love hearing these stories, but it also shows how powerful these changes are and how quickly people can get better. And finally, I want to again thank everyone at the Sentara Health System, because you're not only helping the patients who go through our program, but because we're collecting data on what goes through, you're redefining what's possible, and thereby giving literally millions of people new hope and new choices and new opportunities that they might not have had before. So I wanted to just kind of give you a quick overview of these 40 years of work to make sure we have time for questions and dialogue. So let me pause here for a minute. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ornish, for a fantastic talk. It's very exciting to see the work you've done. We're going to open up the floor to questions. Now, I've been tasked to strictly keep us on timelines since there's so much going on. So we're going to recognize people in the audience. There are mic runners coming around. If you have a question, please raise your hand, ask your question, and I'll repeat it once so that we can all hear. The group has done an amazing job managing the technology. There's obviously always challenges with technology, so we'll repeat as we go back and forth. I see a hand up here, young lady in the black shirt.
Hi, Dr. Ornish. I've been following your work for 5 years, and I've been doing this since the 80s, so I really commend you on staying the course and really continuing to do good work. I work in a cardiac ICU, and yet my resources are the American Heart Association. And when you look at their website, they're still posting multiple meat-based recipes, and they still speak to lean meat. So I was wondering, when do you think you'll start to see that catch up, as well as insurance companies, since you mentioned how much of a reduction of cost there is? When will we start to see preventative programs covered more and alternative medicine therapies?
So I actually on the nutrition committee of the American College of Cardiology, National Society of Cardiology. Bill Williams was the president of the American College of Cardiology a couple of years ago. His own cholesterol level was really high. His LDL was 170. Didn't want to go on a lifetime of statins. Did a literature review, came across our work, went on my program, and his cholesterol level fell by almost 50% without drugs. When he went on a plant-based diet and the other aspects of our program. And he wrote about this in the Medscape and MedPage and other places. And he had a seminar at the American College of Cardiology's annual scientific sessions, and a 6-hour session on lifestyle medicine that highlighted our work, and over 1,000 cardiologists came to it. So I'm encouraged that things are at least changing to some degree. But I'm also share your sense of discouragement. And there's a lot of reasons why that, people say, oh, it's too hard to get people not to eat meat, so we have to let them eat that. And, to me, it's kind of like saying it's too hard to get people to smoking cigarettes, or just smoke less, I think that we have to distinguish between what's easy and what's true. And the truth is that studies have shown that going on a meat-based diet isn't enough to reverse heart disease. It may slow the progression, but it doesn't go far enough to reverse it. In fact, the randomized control groups of our studies were on an American Heart Association type diet, and they showed continued worsening over time. We can do better than that. And I think our moral obligation is to tell people what's true, and not necessarily what's easy, and say, look, don't kill yourself. If you want to eat meat, that's fine. It's a personal decision. But if you have heart disease and you want to reverse it, the only diet and lifestyle program that's been proven to actually reverse the progression of heart disease is a whole foods plant-based diet, low in fat, low in sugar, along with the meditation, exercise, and the support groups. But again, these organizations respond to their members, and so Margaret Mead once famously said, never doubt the ability of a small group of committed people to change the world. In fact, that's the only way it ever happened. So make your voice heard.
You have what I would call a more holistic program. Dr. Stein has a bare-bones plant-based diet program. Similar results from a cardiac standpoint. what value added is there with the whole, I don't doubt there is with your program, the stress management and so on.
As a non-partial diet alone can reverse the progression of heart disease in some patients. But he hasn't done randomized trials, so it's not really entirely clear to what degree the diet is working and how much better it can work if you also add in the stress management, the exercise, and the social support. And there's so much evidence for each of those components that to me, while the diet is important, I think it's also important to add these other aspects as well. And in his studies, he talks about how no one who has studied on his program or very few people have had cardiac events, but that it's hard to know whether people got off this program because they had cardiac events or they had cardiac events because they got off the program. So that's where randomized trials come into play. But again, I think his work is very important and helps us substantiate and replicate, at least to some degree, the findings that we've had as well.
I was wondering what recommendations you make to your patients about alcohol.
In our study, we allowed people to have up to 2 ounces of alcohol, which was like 2 drinks, 2 cans of beer, 2 glasses of wine. But it's really a concession because there's a review article that came out in the Lancet in the past year, which is the premier international medical journal, that showed that even 1 drink a day increases the risk of premature death in both men and women, especially in women with breast cancer. And so I think that the studies that showed that people who had 1 or 2 drinks a day lived longer than those who had more than that or didn't drink at all, apparently were flawed because they didn't really take into the fact that one of the reasons that people who don't drink at all tend to die sooner is that they don't drink because they're sick. They have chronic diseases. And so when you actually adjust for that, there's a dose-response effect that alcohol at any level increases the risk of premature death. But for many people, that's a choice that they're willing to take. And so it's not a moral judgment. It's just saying, look, there are risks that we all take in life. You have to decide if those risks are worth it. But what always concerns me is when doctors are telling their patients who didn't drink that they should be drinking 1 or 2 drinks a day, that's going to help them live longer, when clearly that's not the case.
Hello. What are the primary dietary determinants for vascular inflammation? In other words, what factors dietary-wise cause inflammation?
That's a good question. Having debated Dr. Atkins a number of times, he was a low carb guy, so I kind of got him as a low fat guy. But it's never been just about fat. It turns out that refined carbs do cause inflammation, like sugar and white flour and so on. Too much fat can also cause inflammation. But it turns out that animal protein itself may be an even bigger cause of inflammation. There was a study that came out by Emma Weeks in a journal called Cell Metabolism a few years ago. And they found that people who ate a lot of animal protein, particularly red meat, had a 75% increased risk of premature death from all causes, and a 400 to 500% increased risk of premature death from type 2 diabetes and the most common forms of cancer, prostate, breast, and colon cancer. Because, again, chronic inflammation, and they measured something called IGF-1, which is one of the things that causes inflammation, are significantly increased in people who eat a lot of animal protein. So the diet that we recommend, which is a whole foods plant-based diet, low in fat, low in sugar, and very, very low in animal protein, one of the reasons why it works so well is that it reduces chronic inflammation. But also it reduces these other mechanisms as well in terms of changes that we talked about, changes in gene expression, changes in the microbiome, changes in telomeres, changes in angiogenesis, and so on. And so if we kind of get away from this reductionist way of looking at just one thing at a time, and look at the whole web of things that cause heart disease, and for that matter, most chronic diseases, they all come back to what we eat, how we respond to stress, how much exercise we get, and how much love and support we have.
Hi, have you seen any of your patients who have strictly adhered to the diet with an element of rebound of the cholesterol and LDL levels, and if so, how do you manage that?
Okay. Nothing works all the time for everyone, not diet, not medicine, not surgery, not anything. So there are always anomalies of people who say that they've been following the program well and whose cholesterol doesn't come down as much as we thought, or who may show some worsening in at least one of their lesions. But that doesn't usually happen. The vast majority of people, to the degree they follow this program, their cholesterol gets better, their LDL comes down, everything we measure gets improved, their blood flow to the heart improves, and their blockages become less clogged. So there is an element of mystery to all of this, but what's so striking to me is how rare it is that someone doesn't respond when they really follow it closely. Now, what is clear is that a lot of people think they're following it, by just following, say, the American Heart Association diet. I'm eating a good diet, I'm eating less red meat and more fish and chicken, and taking the skin off the chicken and 4 hours a week. But we already know that that diet doesn't go far enough to even stop the disease from getting worse. You get worse more slowly, which you generally get worse. Whereas we can make bigger changes in most cases, not 100%, but in the vast majority of people, to the degree they make these changes, there's a corresponding improvement in every metric we look at, including the amount of blockages in their arteries.
Thank you so much for sharing with us this morning. I listened to what we're talking about, and I think about our youth and how often we are intervening when someone has already established disease or a chronic problem, and yet our young people in our schools, in our colleges, what are we doing to advance nutrition for that population and to instill healthy lifestyle in the very young?
Well, that's a really important question. I've got a 9-year-old girl and a 17-year-old son. And part of what I've learned is that kids are really hungry in every sense of the word for nutrition information. But again, with kids, and especially with kids, there are two things that I found that are important. One is, which is also true for grown-ups for that matter, one is that even more than being healthy, people want to feel free and in control. And as soon as if I tell my kids, don't eat this and eat that, they want to do the opposite. It goes all the way back to the first dietary intervention, when God said don't eat the apple, and then it goes so long, it was God talking. So, and if you tell a teenager that something is dangerous, that just makes it cool. That's why motorcycles are cool, because they are dangerous. So if you say, don't eat, put that burger down, it's going to be a heart attack 30 years from now, 50 years from now, they'll say, that just makes it more fun. So that doesn't work. But what does work is when you can show people, first of all, the short-term effects on their body. There's a film coming out called Game Changers that James Cameron did, who did the legendary director of Avatar and Titanic and Terminator, all those great movies. He became a vegan about 8 years ago, initially for environmental reasons, because it turns out global warming is caused by livestock consumption and all forms of transportation combined. And that alone, by the way, is really a motivating effect for a lot of millennials to say, gosh, what can I do as one person about global warming? It's going to make a difference. And when people realize that something as primal as what we're putting in the mouth every day affects the planet, then that makes it to use those choices with meaning and makes them more sustainable. It also takes 14 times more resources to make a pound of meat-based protein than plant-based protein. So if people know that by eating a plant-based diet, even if just a single meal that's a plant-based meal once a week, Meatless Monday, for example, that you're freeing up resources that can help feed the hungry. So for many people, in doing those choices with meaning makes them much more interesting and sustainable as opposed to trying to use fear that something bad's going to happen to them. But also it's important to emphasize how dynamic these changes are. When James Cameron made this film called Game Changers, which will be coming out in the next couple of months, I'm one of the medical experts in the film. It was all about working with elite athletes, Olympic athletes and mixed martial artists, national champions, and NFL players, and so on, and showing how they really lifted their game and became medalists and heavyweight champions and so on by eating a plant-based diet. You get away from this idea that meat makes you strong and then kind of a wuss if you don't eat. But there's this wonderful scene that apparently after they shot it, the film crew became plant-based. Three athletes in their mid-20s, and they fed them a meat-based meal, and then they measured, they had a urologist, and they put up this machine on them and measured the frequency and duration of erections they had at night, which is a natural phenomenon. And then they gave them a plant-based meal and did the same thing. In all three men, they found they had 300 to 500% more frequent erections and 10 to 15% harder erections just after one plant-based meal than after a meat-based meal. Now, I've been writing for years that your heart being a single meal can affect how much blood flow your heart gets, but this apparently is a much more motivating finding for people. But it shows important how your skin gets more blood, so you look younger, your heart gets more blood, your sexual organs get more blood, your brain gets more blood. You can grow so many new brain neurons in just a few weeks that your brain can measurably bigger. And so by focusing on the short-term gains rather than the fear of dying if something bad may happen to you, is what I find is really most sustainable and most motivating, not only for younger people, but for older people as well.
Hi, Doctor. I have a question about, you talked about refined carbs and everything. How do you feel about gluten-free diets? Personally, for my thyroid, my endocrinologist is recommending a gluten-free diet based on the fact that that causes a lot of inflammatory responses in the body and can cause autoimmune disorders, cancer, other chronic diseases. So how does that fall in line with the inflammation that you're seeing vascularly?
I'm afraid that a lot of people are told they're gluten sensitive just because it's the new trendy thing when they may not necessarily be. So I would certainly want to see some lab evidence to show that you really are gluten sensitive. But if you are, then it's better to avoid it. But the reason why gluten is important is it's one of the things that can cause chronic inflammation and leaky gut syndrome and things like that. But again, that's just one part of this overall constellation of things that can cause that. We have a number of patients who have autoimmune diseases who've gone through our program, not in randomized trials, but certainly more anecdotal. Everyone from rheumatoid arthritis to lupus to Sjogren's to Hashimoto's to others like that. And they show significant improvements when they make these changes because, again, if you are truly gluten sensitive, avoid gluten, but also try to make these other lifestyle changes. We know, as we've been talking about, that chronic inflammation is a factor of not just the gluten part, but the animal protein, the sugar, the fat. And again, it's not just the diet. Emotional stress increases chronic inflammation. Loneliness and depression increase chronic inflammation. Lack of exercise increases chronic inflammation. So if you have an autoimmune disease, you take a more comprehensive approach by going on our program. And if you are in fact gluten sensitive, then just do a gluten-free version of it. Then you'll find that it has a much bigger impact than just making that change alone.
Hi, Doctor. When talking about a plant-based diet, there's a lot of kickback when it comes to muscle deficiencies. I was just wondering if in any of your studies, did you monitor for that? And if you did come across them, did you tackle them by changing the diet slightly or through supplements?
We didn't find any nutritional deficiencies in people who went through our program. We wrote a paper about that, several papers about that actually, to make it clear. When Medicare reviewed our program for 16 years, they wanted to make sure that it was nutritionally adequate. So we have lots of publications showing that. But I think most people benefit from some supplements. So, for example, I take 3 grams of fish oil a day. And I know there was an article that came out in the New England Medicine recently that said that, this week actually, that said that fish oil is something that's not really effective, but it was really a misunderstanding of the data. What they actually found was that people who, let me just pull up my notes so I can give you the exact statistics, because I thought you might be asking about this, that the people who they actually found that there was a 28% reduction in heart attacks among those taking the fish oil, and a 40% reduction in heart attacks in those who weren't eating much fish to begin with. In other words, if they weren't getting the fish oil and fish. And a 77% reduction in heart attacks in African Americans. So I do think the fish oil is good. There are other studies that have shown that there's a 60% reduction in the risk of Alzheimer's disease in people who have just a gram of fish oil every day. So I take that. And by the way, it's probably worth mentioning that we just began the first randomized trial to see if these same lifestyle changes that can reverse heart disease can reverse Alzheimer's disease. So we're doing the first randomized trial in collaboration with the chairs of the center at UCSF and at Harvard and at Stanford and at California Pacific Medical Center to see if we can actually reverse the progression of Alzheimer's using the same kind of lifestyle intervention, because Alzheimer's, again, chronic inflammation, oxidative stress, the same mechanisms that affect these other chronic diseases also affect Alzheimer's. So I take 3 grams of fish oil a day. I take I take some turmeric because it's an antioxidant. It's particularly good in helping prevent Alzheimer's. My mom died of Alzheimer's, so I have particular interest in that. I take a multivitamin without iron because I think it's just good insurance for everyone. And I take a probiotic, and I take a gram of vitamin C, and I take I take a bit of magnesium because I think it helps to keep your arteries healthy. So it's not because the diet and lifestyle program is nutritionally deficient. I think that it's just an added measure of benefit that can be provided by this.
Morning. My question, I understand the heavy focus on cardiovascular disease, but what about metabolic disorders like PCOS, thyroid? Where do we see the diet change as effective for them? Because a lot of people with thyroid, and we all know, can't have leafy green vegetables.
Why eating vegetables is so good for most people. I mean, if you're someone who's got Crohn's disease or ileostomy or other conditions like that, then the dietitians in our program will work with them to help customize a diet that's more tolerable. In general, the fiber is part of what makes the diet so effective because it helps to increase the transit time so things go through your gut a lot faster. It helps to reduce the inflammation and both the soluble and the insoluble fiber have beneficial effects on lipids and other metabolites. So for most people, that's actually a good thing. If you're in a unique situation because you don't have you had an ileostomy or a colectomy or you have Crohn's disease or something like that, then you should talk with one of the dietitians in our program and they can help customize something for you.
Hello? Hello, Dr. Ornish. My question is, I'm a family practice physician, and one of my colleagues got a lot of pushback from our health system, it's not Sentara, for recommending a plant-based diet to a 4-year-old with severe cardiovascular disease. So my question is, what do you do when we get pushback about recommending the status quo?
Why are they pushing?
We recommended a plant-based diet to someone inpatient, and the nutrition department actually came and lectured us about how that wasn't appropriate. We should just do a healthy, balanced diet with like good proteins, chicken, fish, things like that. So we had a lot of pushback. So I was just wondering what you recommend for people who can be pushed back.
If they're your patients, then you order the diet for them. And if the dietitian, they have to implement your orders if you're the physician. So it really kind of comes down to that. And I think what's probably a good idea, if you're admitting patients to the same hospital on a regular basis, they probably are seeing the same few dietitians. Most hospitals don't have that many dietitians. It would probably be a good idea to invite them over to your office and go through the science with them, or at least give them a copy of one of my recent books so they can actually read the science. That, again, if you're trying to reverse a life-threatening condition like heart disease or diabetes or prostate cancer, that's what it takes. We have shown that in randomized trials. The control groups of our studies are generally having the less red meat, more fish, more chicken, and they tend to get worse over time. And so, unfortunately, many schools of dietetics aren't really up on the current research, and so it would be helpful for them if you can, invite them over, go through the studies with them, give them a copy of some of our papers or our books, and help educate them. But in the meantime, they're obligated to implement whatever diet is that you order for your inpatients. But at the same time, you don't want the dietitian to undermine your advice and say, well, the doctor recommended this, but I don't agree with them. That would be really unwise for the patient and put them in a very awkward position.
Yes, I have 4 autoimmune, and one of them is Crohn's. He suggested that I do the FODMAP diet. What is your opinion of that?
But if you do have Crohn's, I would recommend a wonderful book that I look forward to called Teaching People Wisdom by Rachel Naomi Remen, who is a physician herself who has had Crohn's for most of her adult life. And it really talks more about the psychosocial aspects of that, and I highly recommend it. If you could email me some information about this particular diet, which I'm not familiar with, I'll be happy to give you a written response to it, and the people there can leave my email. Or I can just give it to you now. It's just dean@PMRI.org. And put Sentara in the subject line so I'll know it's you, and I'll give you a personal reply once I've had a chance to read up on it.
Dr. Ornish, it's an honor. I'm very concerned as a lifelong critical care nurse, fitness trainer, when I'm watching what the young folks are going through today. Corporations are demanding longer and longer work days with less pay, less benefits, less prospects for the future in terms of pension. And the stress level is mind-boggling that the young people are going through. Is there anything that politically that your organization can do, or can you point us to help influence our leaders for maybe shorter work weeks? I mean, they're working 10, 12 hours a day, some of the young folks. It's very difficult to sustain a healthy lifestyle when the demands on young people are becoming
exceedingly abusive? Thank you for all you do.
Well, that's an important question, and I'm always looking for leverage points and ways we can make a difference. So, that's why I spent 16 years to get Medicare to pay for this, so we can help people reverse their conditions. I've worked with the Department of Agriculture to try to make it to stop subsidizing junk food and subsidize healthier foods. Working with Senator Harkin, who was the senator, and with Ellen Haas, who was Assistant Secretary of Agriculture. I've worked with some of the leading food companies like McDonald's to get them to put healthier items on the menus because many people live in food deserts where the only places they can eat are fast food and the general choices are really awful. So I'm doing what I can. But, there's so much evidence coming out showing that, for example, something as simple as sleep plays such an important role in so many different conditions. And that, the way that we train people, when I was an intern and resident, we were up on call every third night and up for 36 hours straight, and trying to make decisions when you're sleep deprived is not only stressful for the person, but you're much more likely to make mistakes when you don't have a good night's sleep. The brain detoxifies during your sleep. It's one of the reasons why sleep deprivation is now a strong risk factor for Alzheimer's disease. When they torture people, they sleep deprive them because it makes you crazy. And it makes your fuse much shorter, so even the day-to-day stresses become much more stressful than they need to be. Whereas when you can get enough sleep and you practice the stress management techniques, including yoga and meditation, your fuse gets longer. You can be in the same job, the same environment, but you can react in healthier ways. So again, it comes down to making our voices heard. When it's not just about the bottom line, when it's also about the human costs as well as the economic ones. When people realize that, as I mentioned earlier, that corporations may get some short-term profits by pushing people harder, but they ultimately, if they're responsible for their medical care, it's going to come out on the other end anyway. When we can take a larger view of the whole ecosystem and how all of these things interact, then hopefully we can get more wisdom into our government, which I think most people will agree is it's in a pretty dysfunctional, polarized state right now. It's hard to get much of anything done right now.
I know you spoke about type 2 diabetes and how it helps and even can reverse the effects of diabetes in type 2, but I was wondering if you had done any trials on type 1 diabetes and how these lifestyle changes can help with that. Because I know personally I'm a type 1 diabetic, and any small change that I try to do to my diet, it plummets my blood sugars. So what would be your suggestions for a type 1 diabetic?
Unlike type 2 diabetes, it's a true autoimmune disorder where your body attacks the islet cells in the pancreas and make insulin. And here again, I think autoimmune diseases are can become more. The lifestyle changes that we're talking about can be of some benefit there. But the major complication of type 1 diabetes, like type 2 diabetes, is heart disease. And so even if you most type 2 diabetics can reduce or get off insulin altogether under their doctor's supervision because their blood sugar becomes more normal. Because in type 2 diabetes, the problem is not that your body isn't making enough insulin, is that the receptors become insensitive to it, they downregulate. In type 1 diabetes, you're actually not making enough insulin. But here again, the lifestyle changes can be helpful in preventing the complications of diabetes, particularly heart disease. And some people with type 1 diabetes have found that their pancreas actually can produce a little more insulin, so they're able, under their doctor's supervision, to reduce some of the medication, but not usually to the same degree that type 2s can do.
I'm a dietitian in cardiac rehab, and the biggest barrier that I experience is the fact that a vast majority of my patients have experienced kind of different stories from different providers. Follow the DASH diet, follow the Mediterranean diet, eggs, no eggs. How would you recommend overcoming this barrier to entry as a registered dietitian in a cardiac rehab?
I wrote a book called The Spectrum about 10 years ago that was based on the finding in all of our studies that the more you change, the more you improve. So if you don't have a life-threatening condition, if you want to just get your cholesterol or blood pressure, blood sugar down, start by making moderate changes, and if that's enough to get it down, great. If not, do more. It's kind of radically simple in that way. But what I think people need to know is that the only diet that's actually been proven to reverse heart disease is the diet that we're talking about, whole foods, low-fat, plant-based, low-sugar diet. A Mediterranean diet does not reverse heart disease, and it's unfortunate because there was a study that came out called the Preventive study in the New England Journal a few years ago, and it was retracted and they republished it again this year, that claimed that Mediterranean diet better than low-fat diet at preventing heart disease. What the study didn't really say was, number one, the low-fat diet they compared it to went from 39% fat to 37% fat, hardly any reduction at all, and 37% fat is way too much fat to reverse heart disease. They replaced fat with sugar, which is never a good idea. And even with all that, they actually didn't find a reduction in cardiovascular events. They pulled the stroke data and the cardiac data, and because there was such a big reduction in strokes, probably because the omega-3s that you find in fish oil help prevent blood clots, and 90% of strokes are due to blood clots. But when they looked at the cardiac data, they pooled the stroke data and the heart attack data, they found that there was a reduction. It was all driven by the reduction in strokes. When they looked at the heart disease data separate from the stroke data, there was no difference between the groups. They didn't reduce it. And so the Mediterranean diet, which has become very popular because, again, it tells people what they want to hear, that some meat and some chicken and some fat are really good for you, has actually never been shown to reverse heart disease. So, tell people, look, I'm not here to tell you what to do, but I'm just here to give you information so you can make informed choices. And the fact is that if you really want to reverse your heart disease, this is how you do it. If you don't want to do it, that's your choice. But don't keep yourself by thinking that a different diet, a Mediterranean diet, or a diet that's high in fat and animal protein is going to reverse it. It'll certainly be better than making no changes. It will slow down the rate at which it reverses. But overall, that's not enough to actually reverse it.
Dr. Ornish, I'm curious, what is your opinion of the growing field of integrative health coaching, and how do you see the future of this field being utilized best into our current medical system?
I think health coaching properly done can be great because, the real epidemic in our culture isn't just heart disease, it's what I call emotional heart disease, loneliness, depression, isolation, alienation, with a breakdown in the social networks that used to give people a sense of love and connection and community. 50 years ago, I'm sure in your community, as well as in most places, they had most people had an extended family they saw regularly. They had a neighborhood with 2 or 3 generations of people that they grew up with. They had a church or synagogue they went to regularly. They had a job that they felt secure at, they'd been at for 10 years or more, when they got to know their colleagues. And today, many people don't have any of those things. And I wrote a book about this 20 years ago called Love and Survival, and I reviewed what were then hundreds and now literally tens of thousands of studies showing that people, and I wrote about this extensively in my new book, Undo It, which is that study after study has shown that people who are lonely and depressed are 3 to 10 times more likely to get sick and die prematurely than those who have a sense of love and connection and community. And part of the reason for that is that people know you. They don't just know your bio sketch or your Facebook profile, they know where you messed up, and that they know, and they know that you know that they know, and they're still there for you. One study came out a few months ago that showed that the more time you spend on Facebook, the more depressed you are. Because it looks like everybody has this perfect life but you. People don't post their feelings and their problems in their marriage or their kids or their work or whatever on Facebook in most cases. So it looks like everybody has this perfect life but you. But if you have a support group, if you have a coach that can call you regularly and say, hey, whatever else they're doing, helping you stay on your medications or helping you stay on your diet or your lifestyle, whatever it is, just the fact that someone calls you and is concerned and cares about you, even if they don't say they love you, they're demonstrating that they do it by their actions. Whatever the intrinsic benefit of whatever they're trying to get you to do, just the act of having someone call you is itself therapeutic. And so, that's part of the problem is that, with managed care, the doctor only has 8 to 10 minutes per office visit. It's really hard for that person to feel seen or heard or loved or cared for. And yet we know that, again, people are much more likely to take their meds and make lifestyle changes that are life-enhancing when they feel loved and supported. But there's also an intrinsic benefit that's probably more powerful than anything else we do as doctors in helping people feel loved and cared and supported. And being called by a health coach is one way to do that.
Hi, my question is how do you know who you can trust as far as gathering information? If you go to cancer.org, like the other lady said about the heart website, cancer.org has recipes with bacon, which is a known carcinogen. So it's difficult, like my mom, she's saying you gotta follow what they put out on cancer.org, and I'm trying to figure out, do I need to read medical journals to get the truth, or how can I get Who do you trust? How do you know who to trust?
I see. Well, you can trust me for one thing. I think nutritionfacts.org is a really great website. It's all, the guy who runs it, Michael Greger, wrote a wonderful book called How Not to Die. It's all funded by the people. It's not like Consumer Reports. They don't take any advertising. They don't have any commercial money. He just takes a salary. He doesn't, all of his book royalties and his lecture fees he donates to his nonprofit, nutritionfacts.org. That's one of my favorite places to go to. And again, my work has all been about science, and so all the things that I talk about, all the things we write about, that's why Medicare spent 16 years kind of going through everything that we've done to ensure before they created this benefit category that it was science-based. And so, to me, trust is everything, relationships and science. It concerns me that, we're living in an era where, facts are not considered as important as they should be. As a scientist, that's why I'm a scientist, because I believe in facts. I believe that it's really important to understand what's real so we can make informed and intelligent choices. And this kind of attack and assault on truth and facts is something that I think we should all be concerned about. But it's not limited to nutrition, because I really see that throughout the political arena as well. But from a nutritional standpoint, you can trust what we've been talking about today in our journals and our writings, as well as I would go to nutritionfacts.org. So let me just say in closing, since I understand that was the last question, how grateful I am to have this opportunity to be with you today, this virtually. How grateful I am to the Sentara Health System for making our program available to those who run it, to Dr. Penny and others. And like I say, you are on the vanguard at Sentara, not only for the people that are in your network, but by your example, you're really creating new possibilities and new hope and new choices for many people that they'll never meet, but who will be grateful to you as I am. So thank you again. Really grateful.